My conscience hath 1,000 civil tongues, and every tongue brings in a several tale, and every tale condemns me for a villain. It is that thing we do not talk about, that in the deepest corner and the recesses of our mind and our soul and our being comes forth within our own passion to tell story. For there is no good without evil. It's the darkness that is the most fascinating aspect of what we do. It has the most depth. It has the most reach. It incorporates the most forethought. So here, this season on 21 Grams, we examine the part of the soul that we often try to bury or not talk about. They say that 21 grams is the weight of the soul. But what is the weight of sitting in darkness? This is what we aim to discover this season. Welcome to 21 Grams with your host, Joe Compton. Hello, everybody. Yes, welcome to 21 Grams. And I am joined by an institution here going now, a pillar, if you will, to our success and everything we do. And it is awesome always to have C.L. Cannon joining me for an hour to talk about, well, we're going to talk about villainy and stuff today, but it's always nice to just chat with Courtney. It's nice to see you, my friend. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
It's nice to see you too. I'm Courtney Cannon, aka CL Cannon. I also own Fiction Atlas Press and do some of the things that Joe was talking about here, like the Indie Connection. And I sometimes write fantasy and sci-fi, but I also help authors on their journey to find new readership and to connect with the right readers through Fiction Atlas. So, yeah. And I love talking about villains, and I can't wait to have this discussion.
Awesome. And hello to Anita. Nice to see you. I know there's a few people out there. Please say hello if you're out there. We'd love to hear from you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'll get them put out here. What is really cool, I think, in talking to you about this subject matter is, of course, you do tend to have a propensity to love villains, but you also have a very rich genre background. I mean, you've covered a lot of genres, you've written in a lot of genres, you've put out a lot of stuff in a lot of genres, with Fiction Atlas Press and anthologies and stuff. Yeah. And you've turned villains on their head. You've changed stories that we were recognizable of that had villains in them. And I'm curious, from your perspective, what it is about villains that intrigue you so much, especially crossing genres like this.
I think, especially when we're talking about fictional villains, the best villains are the ones that we can relate to. And I'm a very character-driven reader in the first place and writer. And just like I'm an INFJ, I like to deconstruct someone and see what makes them tick and the reasons why they make some choice, and the possibilities if they hadn't made that choice, where it would lead them. And I like just exploring the darkness in people, but also the reasons for why they chose that path, and what's it going to finally take for them to maybe choose a different path than the one that they're on, or if that redemption is something that that is achievable for them. And so I like getting down to like the deep emotions for any sort of villainy that they do, because the best villains are ones that you feel for, and you can say, okay, if that happened to me, maybe I would make that choice, or well, I'd never make that choice, but I can see why they did. So,
do you believe in their redemption? Is that something that has to happen? Do you think that in order to come to terms with the villain, maybe not necessarily like them, but understand them, that there has to be a redemption involved in that?
I don't think there has to be a redemption. I think it would be kind of boring if every single villain in every story got redeemed, because then you kind of start having a dilemma with the hero. Like, well, if that guy's eventually going to be good, then can we really hate him to begin with? And should the hero be doing this or that against them? And so I think that it's healthy in stories to have some villains that are irredeemable. But I do think we have enough irredeemable people in real life that sometimes it is nice to find people that we think can be changed and to see them be changed. But again, as a storytelling device, I want there to be, if a villain is irredeemable, I want it to be for a very good reason. I don't want it to just be like he's twirling his mustache right now and that he's just, he's just very one-dimensional and he's just evil for the sake of being evil.
Do you believe in the shades of gray? Is that something that helps, quell that likability for you?
Yeah. The goodiest goody two shoes has some gray in them somewhere. And I like exploring that with more light-sided characters too. And the more flaws that you can kind of bring out in a character, the more your audience is going to relate to them in a deeper way. And even if they're not 100% like that person, they can say, well, that kind of reaches me on a human level. And even if the character is not human, sometimes we just still, that's something that humans look for in other humans. We want to be able to feel like we are accepted and understood.
I think of one of your favorite, I don't know if it's one of your favorite characters, but I know this is one of your favorite series. And I think of like a Severus Sniper, or, somebody of that ilk, where you have an instinct that they're evil, but they're kind of burying that evil until the reveal time comes. And I don't care if I spoil that for people.
Too long now if you don't know.
Yeah. But there is this weird redemption in that respect, right? Like an acceptance of, look, I did some bad stuff, and look, I have to accept the consequences of my actions.
Yeah.
So not necessarily redeem themselves, but they kind of accept who they've become or accept what they've done in the past.
They take accountability. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like that is more of what we're talking about here than just out and outright redemption?
I think there's two camps of that. You can have someone who is fully redeemed, but you can also have someone who just becomes a better person, but not necessarily what most people would say is a good person. I want to say like Loki is a really good example in Marvel. Like he started out very very villainy, and over time, especially as we got to like the TV series and things, there started to be kind of other facets to him to where he was trying to take some accountability and try to do better and be a better person. So I still don't think anybody would say that he is quite a hero yet. Maybe in the future, but I like the stepping stones, and especially for a character to say, hey, I did that. That was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. And then to actually go and make amends for it instead of not just admitting it, but actually taking some sort of action to kind of rectify it or to make up for it.
How do you feel about them being the hero's mirror? Like to show them their side?
As like a literary device, I love that.
Kind of like a Moriarty, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because because you know how I like what ifs anyways. That's like my bread and butter for everything I write. Oh, not everything, but a lot of things that I write. It's one of the things that got me into writing in the first point because I didn't like how Little Women ended. And so I was like, well, I'm going to write a better ending, which I didn't. But, at the time, like 9-year-old me thought it was a better ending. Yeah. And because I changed things that made it more appealing to me. But I like being able to explore the what ifs in someone and that mirror image of one character to the next, especially if we're talking like a villain and the hero, and just exploring how their paths diverge, but how they're so very similar, and how just one little thing could have been different, and they could have made one other choice and they would have ended up exactly the way the other one did, or vice versa. So yeah, I really love that.
Are you a big believer in destiny and fate then? Because, that is kind of going against that grain a little bit.
I think we make our own destiny. I don't believe anything preordained. Mm-hmm. I think that anybody can make a different choice, and that it will, affect their future. That they have their own free will, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty apropos of what you publish, especially in Fiction Atlas in the anthologies, because oftentimes with those anthologies, it's a lot about subverting the narratives, right? And
Yeah.
creating a different side of what we know as, right? And I think that is kind of interesting too. And exploring the darkness that way, like taking a hero and putting them in darkness and things of that nature, that seems like it's going to be a much more fascinating journey than just watching the hero's personal journey.
I do think that. I think just like any character, hero or villain, you have to flesh them out and give them things that maybe they're not so good at, and things that maybe are controversial about them, because humans are like that. There's plenty of things, and then have them grow and learn. I'm sure there's plenty of things that I did when I was like in my 20s that I'd look back on now, and I do look back now on sometimes when I look at like my Facebook memories. I'm like, what was I talking about? What in the world? So humans grow and they learn and they make different choices and they end up on different paths, and being able to show that through your narrative throughout the story, and that's what's going to keep someone coming back, especially if you're writing a series. They want to know how they go from point A to point B, and the journey getting there is the best part of it. So yeah.
I when you're writing in specific genres, does the degrees change for you?
I guess kind of.
I mean, if you like, for example, just to give a good example, like urban fantasy is grounded in what we know as reality, right? And so that's part of what urban fantasy is. So if we were to take reality of right now and put magical elements into that, that would be wouldn't that be a darker story than if we were to say put it in the 1950s, right, or something to that effect, or put it in fairyland, right, or
because there's different rules for the world. Yeah. Also, like if you're doing something like a romance, or compared to something that's like a hard sci-fi, there's going to be way different rules, and your audience expectation is going to be so different. And knowing what your audience wants is a big part of your marketing for your books, and so you have to kind of keep that in mind if you're going to be writing and wanting to actually make money on it. If you're just doing it for whatever reason, you can do the craziest thing you want to do, but that's some of the things you have to kind of keep in the back of your mind when you are writing for an audience, and making sure that you're not going to piss them off with something that you do, but also make sure that you're being true to the characters and the world that they inhabit.
Is that hard for you personally? You being known as the marketing guru, to kind of let go and just write sometimes? Are you always constantly thinking of the marketing aspect of what you're writing?
Not when I'm being creative. When I'm being creative, most of the time my marketing brain is off. Good. I'm very visual when I get into marketing. So I'm more like, oh, I can make a really cool promo with this, or, or I'll think about like collaborating with someone and how that would work. But it's usually just like I just kind of switch that part off when I'm writing. And I think I go more into reader Courtney and what she has enjoyed like throughout the years. And I try to kind of pull from that and put into it what I want to see, I guess, in the characters.
Before we got in there, you were mentioning that you were reading some fan fiction today and getting into fan fiction. So you're still into fan fiction. What is it about fan fiction that intrigues you? Are you more intrigued by how the subversion is, or are you more intrigued by the continuation aspect of it?
I like kind of both. I like that you can do anything in fan fiction. Like there's lots of things. I'm not so much of a AU reader, but like alternate universe stories out there exist a lot in fan fiction, and it's very popular. And so, like, oh, these people are in high school now, or these people are in college, or these people work at a record store that nobody's ever heard of, but it's the same characters. That happens. And, sometimes I'll read some of that stuff, but I really like character studies. I really like anything angsty that, somebody is hurt, somebody's, sick, and somebody's taking care of them. I love the relationships between people. And I also kind of love the what ifs, because like, oh, that episode did not end the way that I wanted it to end. And this person's already thought of like 30 different ways it could have ended better. Like, do you know how much right now, Stranger Things fan fiction is thriving because of the ending. So like there's all kinds of stuff out there that it's a fix it. It's a fix it sort of world. And that's what I like about fan fiction. But it's also, as you said, the continuations, because like with Six of Crows, I have read all of Six of Crows so many times. I have read that book, that series, and all the series that Lee Bardugo has written so many times that I could probably recite most of them to you. And I have like 50 editions of them. And she has a new book that's coming out this year that I'm going to read, but that it's connected to that. But in the meantime, to get that kind of fix when you're kind of like, you're not bored of the story, but you want to kind of expand on those lives and see where they could go, or like have like missing outtakes. And so stuff like that appeals to me and keeps me sane when I have too much work stuff to do. When I'm like, okay, I've already put the kids to bed. I've already got all my work done for the night. I'm going to just lay here and have some me time. And I'm going to read about two people being like really dependent on each other, but being too stubborn to admit it, or, you know, whatever I'm reading, you know.
As writer Courtney versus reader Courtney, it sounds like you incorporate both in encapsulating, you know, you want to write what you want to read. In that respect. You just said that, but I am curious if that is just like the substance of the starting point for you. Once you're in it, do you find yourself getting immersed by writer Courtney's insatiable need to go a different direction or find a different way to say something or do something? Does it ever overwhelm you to the point where you're in a different place than you thought you might be?
Because I suck at plotting, yes. Because I am not a plotter. I have read like 50 million books. I have downloaded outlines. I have watched YouTube videos. I have done courses. I have tried for years to be able to plot. And the best I can do is take like a napkin and write like 5 things down that are going to happen in chronological order, and then try to get from thing to thing to thing. That's probably about the best plotting that I can do. And so, yeah, sometimes it will take me somewhere that I'm not sure that I was originally going to be, or like that's very different from what reader me thought was going to happen. And, you know, sometimes you have to write yourself out of that. And sometimes you're like, no, this sucks. I have to just delete this and go back. That's part of being a pantser and not knowing what the hell you're doing. But, you know, eventually you get there, and it's a journey for sure. But it's a lot of times it's not exactly what I thought was going to happen. And sometimes I like run to my husband, like, oh my God, you won't guess what's going to happen with this dude now. Because he's like, you mean the one that was going to do this? No, he's not going to do that anymore. And this guy's dead now. So, you know, it's just there's nothing very concrete when I start writing.
I asked that question to see if maybe, and it sounds like this might be true, when you get lost in it and things start to evolve on their own and change, it seems like you lean on the darker part of it. Is that fair to say?
I do, because I think emotional beats are what gets you kind of through it. That's what excites me to write. So that's going to get me like over the hurdle of whatever problem that I'm having. And that's going to connect me with the characters more. I'm going to learn more about the characters, because I don't completely know my characters until the end of the book. There's always things that they're going to like, that's going to pop up, and I'm going to be like, oh, that would be really cool. And I can connect it back to this. And so I start, going backwards and connecting things. And it's like process.
Do you, is it when you're done with it, when you've exhaled, right? And you've finished all the writing you're going to finish, it sounds like to me, though, you're excited about what had just come out. Like, like you shared with your husband, oh, look what I did here. And then, so you're able to compartmentalize a little bit then, it sounds like. You're able to get out of, if you go to a very dark place, or does it residualize for you at all?
I think at first I probably compartmentalize. I can't say the word, but maybe later, as I think on it. And I'm really bad about rereading and revising and going back when I'm supposed to just keep going forward. I really suck at that, because being an editor, I want to go back and fix all of my mistakes. And I can't, you're not supposed to do that. But I do anyways. And also because I forget what the hell I did, because I didn't have it, planned out. So I'm like, oh yeah, I remember doing that now. I need to reread it. And so at first, yes, or if I am already in a really dark place and I start writing, sometimes I will kind of lean into that and, then just read it and have a good cry or something. But I think for the most part, I'm good at being able to kind of push it off and do whatever else needs to be done. I'm kind of like that in real life anyway, because I'm the oldest daughter. I am the oldest grandchild. I am the one that always gets shit done. And so I'm the one that, that has to kind of do that. Whatever you have to do, if you're going through something, okay, let's do that. But we'll think about that later. We will go eat some chocolate later and think about that when it's not going to inconvenience me or anybody else. I don't know if that's healthy. It's probably not. But that's how I go about it, I guess.
I will say you have grown quite a bit since I've known you. And when you need to take a break, you let me know when you're going to take a break. And that's kind of that didn't happen the first 4 or 5 years that we knew each other, right?
Yeah.
And now you're starting to find that is something important to you, I think.
Yeah, that's absolutely, because before I was like, well, I can't disappoint anyone, and I was not taking any time for myself, and I kind of started to. I'm still not good at it, but I'm still learning to do it. Yeah.
Vanessa and Sean says hello, and then Vanessa.
Yes, Vanessa, you want to talk about
grandchild. And you guys are very similar. I mean, talking to Vanessa, sometimes I'm reminded of something that Courtney said and vice versa. So
that's a very good compliment.
You have done, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've done a superhero anthology with fiction. Yeah. You've done a villain anthology with fiction, have you not?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So, twinsies, yeah. I was curious which got more submissions.
Villains. Villains got a lot. I had to turn people away for villains. For superhero, I had a lot less submissions, and I had to, kind of, for villains, I ended up taking more stories and publishing more than I originally intended. I think I did 10 for superheroes, and I think I did 12 or 13 for villains, because they were so good, and I couldn't turn them more around. So the villains anthology is like this big.
Yeah.
So, and the same with the mermaid one we did was really good like that, and it's huge. But sometimes if the stories are good, I'm not going to turn them away. So,
What were there ones that were darker than you anticipated being?
There were. This one was in actually my anti-hero one that I did. There was some that were just really, really dark, really, really good. There was a few that were that were borderline horror that I like. We usually do PG-13. I try to keep everything PG-13 for the anthologies. And that one, I was like, we're kind of almost at R right now, but it's too good to not publish this one, because I was thinking about that same story like a couple days later, and I'm like, I have to publish that one. There's no way that I can turn that one down. So I think if the story's right, it's fine,
And with those, you didn't really have a genre boundary. It was more of they just had to have a villainy or a hero aspect to them, right? So
yeah, well, we wanted to keep it in fantasy and sci-fi.
Okay.
You could add romance in if you wanted to, or whatever, as long as everything was PG-13. But we wanted to kind of stay in the fantasy sci-fi main genres. So I wasn't really looking for a rom-com or anything. But other than that, yeah, we were pretty loose with how fantasy and how sci-fi it had to be. If it was still set in modern day and it was a retelling or something, it was fine, as long as it just had some recognizable aspects in it.
So speculative fiction on the nicer side.
Yeah.
Basically. I wonder about the darkness aspect of it, because what strikes me most about how, especially Fiction Atlas Press, there's always there's a certain brightness to what you publish out there and put out there in the world, and that has to do with me knowing, I know the reason why that is, and that's because there's so much darkness amongst us, and that and also it's good marketing to put something that has a little bit more lightness to it, brightness to it, and everything like that. But with a villain anthology, it's typical to not have that darkness, that really really darkness in there, because that's just the reality of sometimes villainy. You know.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was kind of a departure for you in terms of what you had been doing before in anthologies, or do you feel like that kind of you kind of have one or two stories for every kind of anthology, kind of like that?
I think that was when reader Courtney took over more than
Yeah.
than author Courtney
Fair
and
enough.
business reader Courtney, because I was like, I really want to read about some villains and I really want to do some twisted stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And I I don't know. I also held a vote for like, because usually when I do a new anthology, I kind of throw a vote out there on like Facebook or somewhere. What are some things that you would want to see? Here's a list of things we're thinking about, and that one was very popular. And so I figure, that one's going to be very marketable. I think I don't think anybody actually ever gets tired of villains. It's kind of like vampires. Everybody says, well, vampire stuff is dead. No, it's not. It always comes back. There's always people that are going to read that. So I think it has longevity. I think people will always be interested in that kind of story. So that was kind of part of the motivation too. But and I just wanted to make me some anti-heroes and write like author Courtney also wanted to go to like a little darker place and write something that would leave people, wondering, why did that person do that, I guess. Like, why did that character do that?
What do you think about emotional autonomy in terms of going darker? Do you feel like like romances? I've read some romances where it goes really dark,
Yeah.
and like there's some things that make me question, cringe a little, and what do you think about that aspect of it? Do you think that romance should be protected a little bit more, or do you feel like that is just part of life and we need to live with it?
I think it depends on the reader. I don't think it's really up to the author as much as it is the reader, because you're providing content for all kinds of different readers, and readers who want something sweet are going to seek out sweet stories. Readers who want something more dark are going to seek out darker stories. I personally don't write anything darker because I have a past that I don't like to think about, so I don't delve into that.
Yeah.
But there are people who find catharsis through that. There are people who just, that's just what they like to read. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with the authors writing that. But it's just not for me. But there's also things out there that I read that probably are not for other people. So I think it's just a thing of making sure that you're finding the right audience and that your writing is not marketed to the wrong audience. Like you're not marketing something that might be more taboo or darker to somebody who's expecting something sweet. But other than that, I think it's just an audience thing.
Do you think it's more of becoming the norm, or do you feel like it's just something that's there and happens every once in a while?
I think it could also have some to do with just cycles. Everything is comes and goes in cycles. So sometimes we're getting things that are more darker. I think sometimes the darker our world is, sometimes we do delve into darker subject matters. And that's kind of an escape for the dark stuff that is happening because it's a little bit different. Or, sometimes we do the opposite of that. We're wanting something more light. So I think it's more to do with how the market is going and who's buying it. If someone's buying it, someone's also always going to read it,
I contend too that once something becomes popular, it goes beyond exhaustion. Like romantasy is a perfect example of that right now. Everything's being labeled romantasy. If it has a little bit of romance and some swords in it, it's romantasy, right? Or if it has a wizard and a wizard falls in love with a princess, it's a romantasy, kind of thing. And it just seems like when you hear that, your eyes roll in the back of your head a little bit and go, "Oh my God, does we have to label everything romantic?"
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, and so I think, like you said, there's cycles of it, but there's also exhaustion that goes along with that too, right? Like you said, that everybody says that vampires are dead. I think people want vampires to be dead because they're so tired of reading vampire stories, right? There was a time when zombies was that way for a little bit, The Walking Dead kind of ran its course, and then it went to it jumped the shark a little bit. And now everybody's like, oh, not another zombie, things like that. But ultimately, I think good and evil have a mainstay in all of that. Would you tend to agree with that? Is that you? Do you feel like that when we get back down to it, that's what the fundamentally is all about to begin with?
That's like, that's like the bare bones of every story is somebody, even if it's not like really varying degrees of good and evil, there's always there's something driving someone that is it could just be like an internal conflict, but there's always something that is weighing someone down and then that can bring them up. And I think that it doesn't matter the genre, it doesn't matter when it's published, it's always going to come back to good and evil and how those feelings make the characters react and the journey that they go on, which is what we're reading.
So how do you market that? How do you, if you were to be given a story and somebody said, can you put this out there for me and figure out how to market it? What do you look at? Do you look at what is trending? Do you look at what is exhausted? Do you try to find the fundamental aspect of it and put it out there as the fundamental aspect of it?
When I first go to market something, I first look at how marketable the product is, because if the product's not marketable, I'm not going to be able to do anything for you, and I send you back to the drawing board. But if something is marketable, then
there is such a thing, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, there is. I turn away more people than I hire sometimes. Yeah. But I mean that hire, you know what I mean, that I take on. But yeah, I do look at trends, but more that doesn't affect if I'm going to take on the job or not. The trends, if it's like something like that's really high on like a wave right now, yeah, I can use that to my advantage. And there might be different strategies that I use to be able to get that out to more people. But I always do try to find something that's unique about the story, no matter, what genre we're in, what we're doing with it, that's going to make it stand out and that's going to make that book be a success for the author, but also, garner new attention, because you can keep sharing in their same social circle and the same people are going to start picking it up. You need to find something that's going to catch new people's attention and figure out, they've been marketing it with the same blurb. They've been marketing it with these same, also if you like this, you would like this, like I could do on the Indie Connection. Their comparables are the same. And after you do that, it stagnates and you cannot find new readers for it. Even if you are maybe serving it on like a different platform or something, you're still going to find a very shallow pool because you don't have the right words to bring in somebody and make them think that this is something I need, because they've already either seen that and went, nah, or it's just not appealing to them. So reaching in and trying to find like just the little things that would reach new people, new readers who might like that story, but they haven't been marketed to the right way yet, is kind of how I approach that, I guess.
When you find a story like that, where you're trying to search for it, are you more often looking for the gray angle more than not? Do you find that might be the more appealing aspect, is how not the moral line, but the line that it might be blurring or crossing?
It really depends on genre, actually, for that.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like if I'm doing something that is more fantasy, and according on exactly what your subgenre is, like if you're writing something that's more grimdark, if you're writing something that is more epic, something more Lord of the Rings, than something that is a little bit darker, I kind of go with the vibe of the story, I guess. Even though like something like Lord of the Rings has darkness in it, the main moral of that story is being able to have the courage to overcome darkness no matter what. Mm-hmm. And so I think that is hope is still very powerful, and a powerful way
to come together in that adversity as well, right?
Yeah.
So another big theme of those books.
Now,
Yeah,
if we're supposed to be falling in love with the villain, then yeah, I'm going to go with the darkness.
yeah. Well, I'm just thinking of like a Dracula, right? Dracula
Yeah.
is where you'd love the villain more than you'd love the hero kind of aspect of things.
Yeah. With that, definitely you would go with Dracula and kind of hype him up. Like, or like we're about to get the new season of Interview with a Vampire, Lestat. So yeah, I would totally play into all that for something where we're trying to love someone who is more of an anti-hero, or if there's a story that is darker. So I guess like my answer to that really depends on the story and the subgenre.
Yeah, that's why people don't like Queen of the Damned, because Anne Rice messed with Lestat's mind in that in that book, right? There you go. See, I don't want to be accused. I kind of brought up Dracula so I can get off the bad juju vibe train there. I was just bringing up vampires. I wasn't saying anything bad about them. All right. The reason I'm curious about that is because it's often said that darkness and villainy are easier to market than heroism, but that's not necessarily the case, right? I'm happy to hear this. It is dependent on genre, but I think it's also dependent on time period, right? It's also dependent on, because right now cozies are really popular. People are loving the cozy, and they're loving it in multiple genres. There's cozy fantasy, there's cozy horror, there's cozy
mystery, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and cozy mysteries, where it's all pretty much based upon too. That's kind of the home base for cozy. But so I think there's a time and place for everything. But I do think that villainy sells in a lot of respects, but it doesn't necessarily have to always sell, right?
I think that's true. And like you said, like when we find ourselves in hard situations, sometimes it's nice to just read a story where two people go on some epic adventure and nothing really bad happens. And they just have a really nice time. They drink them some like spiced meat or something, and they go and find a garden or something. Like whatever makes them happy. And it's more about character relations. And I think especially that one thing that I think is really interesting about like the rise of cozy fantasy and more cozy stories right now is we are really in the world right now. We are really connected, but we're also really disconnected. And I feel like cozies are a lot more character driven than plot driven, and it's more about the relationships between people. And most of the time there's no devices to get in the way or social media to bring up anything. So it's about two or three, not necessarily two characters, but it's about characters connecting on a deeper level than trying to get likes or trying a new trend. It's about having a deeper understanding of someone, and I think that's kind of why we're kind of gravitating a little towards the cozy side these days.
I also think, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I also think marketing wise, we want to cheer for something. We want to feel like we don't. Everyday life is so grim and dark, and we just want sometimes to escape. And escaping in that aspect, in that way, allows us to. There's rule. That's why there's rules to cozies, right? Cozies have specific rules, and I think part of the appeal for writers is to follow those rules and stay within those boundaries. We don't often get like when epic fantasy comes about or hard science fiction comes about. Yeah, they have rules, but a lot of authors look to bend those rules and walk over that line. Nobody is challenging cozy in that respect. They may teeter on that line. They may tap dance a little bit or tiptoe over a little bit, but none of them go deeper, because then it would not be cozy at that point, right?
It breaks the genre, right?
So I think there's the author side in that, staying in those rules and staying in those boundaries is kind of a nice exercise. It's kind of it's an escape for the author as much as it is for the reader. But I think as readers, we really want to just be. We want to have the character love, and we want to fall in love with the characters and enjoy the characters as much as anything. And we don't have to get in the way. Like complications don't get in the way for us in that respect.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think that it's nice to have a place where hope is possible and good things happen, and you don't have to worry about anybody dying or anybody being, attacked, or nothing really that negative is happening. It's just people are connecting, and you are along for the ride, and it's almost like kind of venturing into a one of the other stories, like maybe an epic or something like that, in the downtime. Like it's kind of like a behind the scenes, like before all this happened or after all this happened. This is more of a everyday life thing than all these high stakes that are really good for drama and angst and being able to drive a plot forward. But being able to just kind of chill with somebody and appreciate them as a person or an orc or whatever you're reading about is actually really nice. And it's something that a lot of us don't have time for now. Everybody is always working. Everybody's always hustling, trying to work like 3 jobs so they can get by and they can feed their family. And it's just not, it's stressful, and it's nice to have something to read that's not stressful.
Are you encouraged by the direction things are going as far as fiction is right now, or do you feel like we're in a lull? Where do you feel we are as a readership and a society right now in terms of authoring?
I think we're doing just fine. I feel like people are reading more now than they were. And I'm like excited about that, because there was a time when people were kind of trying to put it down and not read. I feel like we're getting a lot more shorter books though, because books seem to be getting shorter. We're getting a lot more serials, which is fine. That's another thing that kind of goes in a cycle, because serials were really big like 10 years ago or something. And so being able to see that kind of return is kind of cool. But it does speak to us not having as much time. Audiobooks are becoming more and more popular, which I really love, because I love audiobooks. But I think we're evolving definitely into the way that we read. But I still think that we are mass consuming books, which is always good in my opinion. So I think we're doing just fine as far as authoring and as far as readerships go. The corporate sides of it are not that great, because, we're losing more bookstores and we're seeing AI come into stuff and all that dystopian stuff that we try to escape when we get into cozy fantasy. But yeah, I think we're doing fine as a species right now on that, at least on that aspect.
Are you worried about AI taking that away?
I'm not worried about it taking it away completely, but I do think that it is a problem. It is taking away a lot of authors' ability to make money right now. We're seeing KU being like the payout for that being like the lowest it's been ever, I think, in years. And we're seeing lots of people have to go wide, and lots of people are going from full-time authorship to part-time authorship. So I do think it is hurting the industry for sure. It's hurting readers by them getting sometimes less than good content. It's plagiarizing some things, not just by like scanning our books, but actually like plagiarizing other authors more easily. So we're finding lots of fakes and dupes and stuff out there. So it's a problem. I think it's probably going to continue to be a problem, because I don't feel like it's going to be regulated anytime soon. So that's bleak, but I still think that we will eventually get through it.
In your own authorship and in your books you're writing and the things you're doing right now, are you leaning more toward darkness these days, or do you find you're also finding an escape route?
I kind of always have a little darkness in the stories that I write, but I always also end them with hope. I don't think I've ever really, well, maybe one time, but for the most part, I've always tried to get them to the dark place and then show them that there is hope and that that it can be better. And so I don't feel like that I've changed that very much. That's very much the antithesis of me. That's how I've always kind of been. I like to wallow in like the angst and all the hurt and comfort and stuff, but the main goal at the end of the day is to get to that good place where everything is okay again, and at least for the moment, you're having a good time again, and you believe that the world can be better and that you can change it, and that we are not doomed. I guess.
How much does you're really dabbling in fantasy right now? That's pretty much what you're producing, right? Fantasy
Yeah.
aspect, yeah. How much of the setting matters to you in terms of what you're what mood you're setting? Do you find that setting is an important part of darkness?
Really, setting doesn't play as much into it as just the characters and the way that I'm developing them because
So
like
yours is more of a mental aspect thing.
yeah, definitely mental aspect for like how the characters are, the place that their characters are in, and how they're going to get out of it.
So, how does world building play into that? Then, is it just kind of to put them in some position where they can feel those things, or is it more of well, we're in a field, so let's talk about how I feel about that.
This one definitely depends on the story and not even so much the genre. It's just depending on how character focused my story is being at the time. But there are some where I'm going more in a commentary on that world is more a commentary on the world as I see it, as our world as I see it. So there are things like in my one about the secret library that I'm doing. There's a whole political aspect to that one that is a bigger part of the world building. And then there are other ones where it's more about the way people treat each other. And so the world is more based on how the characters are interacting with it than it is kind of more like the big world building. It's more like, oh, this character can do this, so I need to make a rule for how that works, and less of, oh, this is the ability, and then I'm going to give it to a character. So it's kind of in reverse, I guess.
What perspective do you typically write in?
I kind of go back and forth. I do some first person, but usually I do like third person limited usually. And then just switch POVs by like in the chapters. Very George R.R. Martin, but not that long.
So it's really about perspective then. It's kind of like, and not so much expectations, but reactions to what has happened in
Yes.
a lot of respect. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you find are you surprised by how your characters react sometimes to the darker elements?
Sometimes, yeah. And there's been times where I thought a character was going to react a different way. And then when I finally got to that part of writing it, I was like, well, I don't know after this other thing happened. That's the great thing about the whole discovery writing process is like some things will happen that you didn't anticipate before. And that kind of changes your perspective on who that character is and how they would react to it. So yeah, that definitely has happened.
Does Reader Courtney get in the way and want to save them?
Yeah. There was a character that was supposed to die that has his own series. So yeah. Supposed to be a side character. It was like a whole prequel. So
I love that Writer Courtney listens to Reader Courtney.
Oh yeah, all the time. Writer Courtney wouldn't be anywhere if Reader Courtney didn't exist. So.
So she pays homage.
Yeah. That's another one. My Dark Fairy from this Sleeping Beauty retelling that I'm writing. I was like, well, I need to make this some short story so I can have like a lead into the series. And it just became a whole redemption arc for her and like why she's the way she is. And I was like, well, that probably is going to change how she's going to end up in the end of this actual book, because I have more empathy for her now because I know what she's been through, and she's less a flat character now. I know all the stuff that got her to this moment.
I love that there's a Writer Courtney and Reader Courtney. Yeah.
I'm just glad that the Writer Courtney and the Reader Courtney don't talk to each other like Gollum or something, because that's like very brain for me.
Then your kids are going to be looking at you going, what is going on over here?
No, they'll just be like, oh, bruh, what are you doing? Like that. Bruh, I'm hungry.
Are you when you're searching out? I know that the attraction for Indie Connection is to get as close to the the subject as possible that you're, trying to, duplicate or replica, but are you also, I mean, when you look at something and it tends to be darker, are you kind of going, oh yeah, I think that needs to be there a little bit more than not?
Sometimes I'm like, oh, that's going.
Especially if you read the book, right?
Yeah.
If you read the source material, I bet that's when that happens a lot, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because like if it's something that is very close to something I've already read before, I'm like, but it's just a little bit darker, or there's like a more like villainy thing. Oh yeah, that's ending up in my car and I'm reading it. It doesn't always go in any connection because I really do try to keep that as close, especially as far as how dark something is and how like if there is something that's like an LGBTQ story, I'm not going to put like 3 straight stories in there with it just because it has the same tropes. I try to be as close to it as possible in every aspect that I can. But yeah.
What do you think is the biggest misconception about heroes and villains?
That they're always enemies. They don't always have to be enemies. I mean, sometimes they have to work together. Sometimes they are working for the same thing and they just find themselves like at odds on one issue. So they can eventually help each other out if you've got the redemption arc, or if you've got something that some other common enemy that they have together. They don't always have to just be at each other's throats. And then sometimes they can even have empathy for each other, which I think is actually very healthy. As long as they're not just like really one-dimensional.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
How much can they love one another, you think?
There's a whole genre about this, Joe, called enemies to lovers.
Well, yeah, but okay, fair enough. That's fair. But I mean, do the enemies have to be hero and villain? They could also be like, anti-heroes fighting a villain, and they come together because they love because a villain makes them kind of come together, right?
Yeah. That's the beautiful thing about writing, is that you can do anything you want, and you can make them have different motivations. You can change things. You can throw something into the works that this one character didn't know, and it completely changes their perspective, and they abandon whatever it was that was driving them because it's no longer the truth of their world. And so that's the evolution of it is like the beautiful thing about writing.
I think of when I ask that question, I think of Thor and Loki as a perfect example of that, right? The brotherly love, and we only see Thor's darkness when something bad happens to Loki, right?
Yeah.
And that's when Thor kind of goes into his own dark way, right? So
yeah, exactly.
And then we only see goodness in Loki when something happens to Thor, right?
So love can unite you even if like something else is dividing you on it. So yeah.
Do you think that darkness can be present in a manner in which is really dark without it being horror?
I think, I don't know. Probably. I'm trying to think of an example, but I think it probably can. I think darkness is a broad term. Mm-hmm. And so there can be things like mental darkness that a character can have. I'm trying to think. I don't know if you've read anything about John Green, but he has a book called Turtles All the Way Down. And it's about OCD. And, I actually have been diagnosed with OCD. But it's not the kind where you just clean things, there's a bunch of different aspects to that. And one of those things is mental rumination. And so in that book, they're thinking of the main character is thinking of all the bad things that could happen. Oh, that wound could get infected and I'm probably dying now, or because I didn't tell someone this, they're going to die now. Those are like the things that can like be a darkness in your brain that are they're not born of any evil. They're just something that's a chemical in your head that's firing wrong, that's making that darkness come about. So it's definitely not always just inane evil, I guess.
Well, here we go. I'll play the indie connection for you. There's a book by Juliette Rose called Done that is all about addiction and a gentleman trying to kind of find his way. And it's literary fiction. It doesn't go into a horror aspect. It has horrific elements in it. There's abuse and others subplotting in that aspect of it. But it is essentially a real life story about a real life person kind of idea, and it goes really dark because that person has to go really dark to bring themselves out of it.
Right.
So I answered my own question. All right. But I really appreciate your answer, of course. But I'm fascinated by the idea of subverting darkness. Did you, when you put out the hero thing anthology, was one of the criteria that it had to show the hero aspect of the person, or was it they just had to be a hero and then whatever happened to them after that would be whatever happened to them?
I did not set any guidelines on that the superhero had to continue to be a hero. And actually the one that I wrote for that was almost an anti-hero. It was about a group of different heroes, and they found out that one of the people that they trusted had come back and was fighting against them, and they were trying to figure out, well, he was so good before, what happened? Why is he evil now? Which he's not really evil, spoiler, but that there's a reason for this, the darkness. He's lost someone there. He's trying to set something right. And so there is a reason for that darkness to be in there, and a reason for him to be on the opposite side of this issue with them, but they don't have all the information yet. So it's also about perspective.
And that's what it's all about, right? Perspective, right? How you perceive the evil or darkness is not how I perceive evil and darkness. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why gray is an interesting shade for character.
I agree.
Well, I could talk to you forever, as always, but we have reached our hour, or getting very close to reaching our hour. So I want to give you the opportunity to tell everybody where they can find stuff for you. And if you have anything going on, like any builders or anything you want to talk about, please let us know what's going on in CLCAN world and Fiction Atlas Press world, and give us an idea of where they can go and indulge all these things for me.
You can find me at clcanon.net. You can find all of my giveaways. You can find information about my books. And then if you're an author, you can go to fictionatlas.com. You no longer have to put the dash in there because I got the good domain name now. But you can go to fictionatlas.com. I waited for that for like 8 years. But you can go to fictionatlas.com/open promos. And you can find all the promos that we have open right now. I do have a Romantasy paperback open now, and I got a whole bunch of other things for all genres, for romance, for fantasy. So I got Star Wars. I got a lot of cool stuff open right now. We've got a romance book fair and a fantasy and sci-fi book fair that are open and will be closing soon. So you can get in on those $10 and you get your book in there. We throw it out to like 500,000 people. Everybody puts it in their newsletter. It's a good time. It's cheap. You don't have to do a lot, and you get some good eyes on your story. If you want to actually see me in person, I'm going to be at Imaginarium Book Festival in Washington, D.C. for the 5th year this year. I love that place. It is my favorite place to go. It's going to be at the University of the District of Columbia, and it's going to be on June 6th and 7th, which is a Friday and a Saturday. I will be there with a whole bunch of other really awesome authors, and I'll be signing books. I just sent in some artwork that I just got done for In the Kingdom of Dreams that I think is going to be really cool. If you are going to that, then you're going to get that artwork in your tote bag because I'm one of the sponsors for Imaginarium.
Cool.
But it's going to be awesome, and I hope that I can see some of you there. If you can't see me there, you can see me every Sunday on the Indie Connection here on Going Now.
And she would have been on the marketing tip if we had late night news tonight, but instead I have I have so graciously, because I am a gracious human, given the floor to our other side of Go Indie Now, which is our gaming side, and Hit the Dice is doing a continuation of the Action Heroes, Christopher Heldon's Action Heroes game. The live play they did last week was establishing characters and setting up characters. So you got to see kind of the inside baseball on how people develop the character to kind of go into what is tonight the adventure they're going to play. So they're going to play their adventure tonight. Immediately following here, go just come out of here and go right to our right to Go Indie Now on YouTube, and you'll find it. Also, it's right there, so you can do that, and you can check out everything we're doing this week. We've got more stuff coming, including a Sunday This Week in Indies, where we will see the Indie Connection. And that being said, I don't often let the guests do this, but because it's Courtney, tell everybody why, Courtney.
Because it's always time to go indie now.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.